Hello and welcome back to my F1 diary. I am so glad Brazil is over. I was stressing over it for a long time because of the unpredictable weather and obviously what happened last year. So I just wanted it to go smoothly for Lando and that he could open up the gap even more on Oscar and Max. And thankfully, that's exactly what happened. He topped every session this weekend, so P1 in practice, got pole for both the sprint and the race, and then won both the sprint and the race. So I'm very, very proud of him. He had great pace the entire weekend, had good starts, good restarts, good pit stops. So I'm really, really, really happy. The gap to Oscar is now 24 points after coming into this weekend. It was only 1 point. So that feels like a huge relief. Obviously, it's far from over, but at least the margin is bigger now between the two. So it gives Lando some breathing space. And then everyone behind Lando, it was kind of chaotic. Not in a Mexico kind of chaotic, just a lot of action, probably a lot that I'm not gonna even talk about that I missed and like they didn't even show on the broadcast because they kind of suck at that. So it was a great race. Everything was still open until the very last second of it. Like the entire top 10 could have changed right up to the end. So that's very, very exciting. So yeah, let's just go over everything that happened. Apart from Lando, the other driver who had a really great weekend is Kimi, who qualified P2 for both the sprint and the race and finished P2 for both the sprint and the race, getting himself his personal best finishing position in F1 ever. For the first time, I believe, of many, he stood on the second step of the podium on Sunday, and that was really, really nice to see. I'm really proud of him as well, and he did a great job, especially in the race, defending from Max in those last few laps. And I guess we're gonna have to talk about Max now. He had kind of a roller coaster weekend. I qualified P6 for the sprint and finished P4, and then in the race qualifying, he qualified P16. That was insane. First time he ever got out in Q1. Not ever, but first time in 4 years that he got out in Q1, like on pure pace. Obviously, Brazil last year, but that was because of a red flag or yellow flag, whatever it was. This was just pure pace, couldn't get it. So that was insane. And then even more, he had to start from the pit lane because they changed his setup, which definitely was the right thing to do because he was fucking fast on Sunday and climbed all the way up to P3. But like even the race didn't go super smooth for him from the pit lane. He started on the hards and had a puncture, so he pitted very early on onto the mediums. And with the new tires, he was getting a lot of places, but then he had to pit again just because those mediums were not gonna hold on to the end of the race. But because he already had the hards on, he could have changed to another set of mediums, which were the best tire this weekend. So that gave him an extra advantage. And by the time he was done with his second pit stop, the people ahead of him, which were at the time Lando, Oscar, and Kimi, I believe, still had to pit again. So on lap 50, when Lando made his second pit stop, Max inherited the lead on 16 laps old medium tires, which isn't that bad in my opinion. And Lando got out of the pits behind him. And there was some real fear in me that after all of the great work Lando has done this weekend, Max was gonna somehow still win. And from the pit lane, which would be insane. I think the commentator said it would be the first time ever in F1 history that someone went on from the pit lane to winning the race. But then, surprisingly, I think it was actually a mistake, but okay, I'll explain in a second. Red Bull pitted Max again onto the softs. So Lando led again, and Max was chasing George for P3 and then Kimi for P2. He got George and then couldn't get Kimi. It was really close though. And the reason I think it was a mistake is because like you're taking away his opportunity to win here. He was P1 on the road. Lando was like 7 seconds behind him. On fresh mediums, that's right, but by the time he got to Max, his tires wouldn't have such an advantage as he did have the first time he had to overtake him with the fresh softs on very old mediums. So it would not be so easy for Lando to overtake Max, I think at least. But then even if Lando did overtake Max, then he's P2, and then if Kimi gets him, then he's P3, which is where he actually ended up. And then the slight chance that George was also going to get him and then he was going to be P4. That was, I think, the worst case scenario if he stayed out, which was the same in the worst case scenario after he did pit. Like if he couldn't somehow get George, that he would stay P4. So worst case scenario in both situations is P4, but best case scenario, if he stayed out, is a win, and if he didn't stay out, is P2. So you see what I'm saying? I'm not complaining, by the way. I'm just saying that I think it was a bad decision from Red Bull. Honestly, I don't know, like maybe Max was really struggling with his tires or something like that, and he really didn't think he could hold on. But as I see it, it was kind of a mistake, just for sure not having him win. But obviously P3 is still insane from the pit lane, and I'm sure he's very, very happy with the results he got this weekend. So, I mean, obviously I'm not complaining because obviously I want Lando to win, and I don't think Max is complaining either. So that was that. Then George got P4 in the race and P3 in the sprint. He was just there. I don't know. He didn't do anything special, I think. And then Oscar did not have a great weekend, unfortunately. He was actually really, really close to Lando in practice, like a few hundredths of a second in P2. And then for the sprint, he qualified P3. But then DNF'd. He like slipped on a curb, a wet curb. So he got out of the race. It wasn't only him who did that. After him, it was also, I think, Nico and then Franco as well, right after the other on that same curb. So they all DNF'd. And then in the race, he qualified P4. He stayed P4 starting the race. And then there was a safety car for Gabby, who we'll talk about in a second. And then on that safety car restart, he tried to get Kimi and Charles they were all three going into turn one together, and Kimi kind of squeezed him. Oscar locked up, had contact with Kimi, who then flew into Charles, who then DNF'd, unfortunately. Truly an innocent bystander in that incident, unfortunately, but Oscar got a 10-second penalty for that. And honestly, I don't even know anymore if that was the right call from the stewards. I think it was more of a racing incident, but I can't lie, it was great news for Lando to know that Oscar, who was P2 on the road at that moment, had a 10-second penalty, which will drop him down to P6, P7, and then he would have to overtake on the road. So yeah, really not the best weekend for Oscar. He got up to P5 at the end. He was kind of fighting with George for the last few laps, but he couldn't get him. So yeah, while Lando is kind of on an upwards momentum, Oscar is on a downwards momentum, I guess you can say. He's not had a great a lot of races actually from Azerbaijan. He's not been doing super well. I mean, last year as well, he wasn't great in those last races. I don't know if it's him being tired or just the tracks are not really his cup of tea. So that's not very nice to see. I mean, again, even though I want Lando to win this championship and everything that's happening is favoring Lando, I love Oscar as well. And I hate seeing him like this. So that's a real shame. Yeah, hopefully he can get better, but not too much. I need Lando to keep outscoring him in every race weekend. So don't overdo it, Oscar. I love you, but not this year. I need this year to be Lando's. Anyways, then we have Ollie, who had a pretty good weekend, a solid weekend. He qualified P15 for the sprint and ended up P12, but then the race was really great for him. He qualified P8 and finished P6. Really good pace from him during qualifying and the entire weekend, actually. So yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot that happened with him the race, I think, but he just had a great race, and I'm really happy for him that he got more points for Haas. Then for the rest of the point scorers in the race, we had Liam in P7, Isaac in P8, Nico in P9, and Pierre in P10. Pierre was also really great the entire weekend. Both Racing Bulls were great. Pierre actually finished P8 for the sprint, so he got points in both the race and the sprint. So really great job, especially given like how shit the Alpine is. And Alonso also scored points in the sprints. He got P6. And Lance was on the verge of the points. He got P9. So kind of an improvement from the Aston Martins, but in the race, it didn't really work out for them. And then we have our DNFs. So Charles already talked about in the contact with Kimi on the restart in lap 5. And Gabby, who caused that safety car, DNF'd both the race and the sprint, which is really sad given that he is Brazilian. This is his home race. So really not a great weekend for him, unfortunately. And a really scary accident, actually. In the sprint, it was really the last lap. Like, he went for an overtake into turn 1 and just slipped, hit the wall, inside wall, and then it flung him into the outside wall. Really scary. 57G, that's huge, but thankfully he was all okay, and the mechanics did a really, really great job at fixing his car for the race qualifying. He didn't actually get to set a lap time there, but they tried, and I mean, the car was intact and driving. It just, I guess, wasn't fully fixed. So insanely great job from the mechanics for getting the car back on the racetrack after that huge accident. But yeah, not a great home race weekend for Gabby. And then you can kind of say the same thing for Hamilton, I guess, as he's an honorary citizen of Brazil or something like that. In the sprint, he did do well. I mean, he got P7, but in the race, he really had a horrible race. He qualified P13 and then had some contact in the first lap. And then he lost his front wing just by getting too close to Franco. So he had to pit and change his wing. And then he also got a penalty for that contact. And then he had like another penalty. I can't remember why. And he came into the pits like a few times, and then they finally retired the car. Like, Lewis, let's just give up. It's not working for us today. Similarly, that's a weird word. Yuki also didn't have a great race in that terms. He didn't DNF, but he finished 17, which is last, and was 10 seconds away from Lance in P16 when he crossed the line, with everyone ahead of him being like 1 second apart from each other. So he was very lonely at the end of the race there. I actually had like some good pace at the beginning, I would say. He got up some places, but then he had a penalty for a collision with Lance, or maybe Alonso, one of the Aston Martins, a 10-second penalty for that. And then when he came to serve it, they didn't serve it properly, and he got another 10-second penalty for not serving the penalty properly. Properly. So it was kind of similar to Lewis in that he was in and out of the pits, but Red Bull didn't give up on him, I guess, and let him finish the race. So yeah, there were so many pit stops this race. Let me count. Almost at 2010. 37 pit stops. I mean, when I say it like that, it doesn't seem that much. But given that 3 drivers DNF'd, I mean, 2 didn't have any pit stops. So 18 drivers, 37 stops. I mean, some of them did 3 pit stops. Yuki did 3 pit stops. Max did 3 pit stops. Lewis did 3 pit stops before he DNF'd. And then I think, yeah, the rest of the field did 2 stops each. So yeah, I don't know. It just felt like so many pit stops. Like every 5 minutes, someone was coming into the pits, and like the order was changing the entire time. It was crazy. So yeah, that was Brazil. Great sprint, great race. Really happy that it went for Lando. And next is Vegas, which I'm kind of worried about because Vegas is not our forte, like in McLaren, with the long straights and the cold conditions. I'm kind of scared. But as I said, as long as Lando keeps outscoring Oscar and Max, it's fine by me. I mean, obviously I want him to win, but he doesn't have to. So Vegas is up next. We have a week break before that though, and honestly, if we know anything about cold conditions and who's good in cold conditions, it's Mercedes. So I'm kind of expecting them to be on top, especially with George winning last year, and I kind of want to see Kimi win it. That would be great, I think. So yeah, that's it. I am scared and excited at the same time for these last 3 races of the season. I'm gonna have a heart attack in Abu Dhabi. The championship is definitely going right up to the last lap there, which is so stressful. I don't think I'm gonna breathe for the entire thing. So wish me luck, but I'll see you next time in Vegas, and until then, enjoy these memes. Bye!